Hello and welcome to the OnStage Colorado podcast. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca, and we are here today with a bonus episode to focus on the just announced winners of the 2025 19th Annual Henry Awards hosted by the Colorado Theater Guild.
Right. So today is July 29th. The show, or the ceremony was last night, Monday night. And so the Colorado Theater Guild has dozens of judges who fan out around the state to see shows and rate all the parts of them on a score sheet. So those scores for, include things for directing, acting, lighting, design, and all that. That are then tallied, and the nominees are announced. And then, so the Henry season runs May 16th, 2024 to May 15th, 2025, and featured 170 productions by 57 companies. So pretty decent representation there.
That's right, and the number of productions is up from 2024, so there were more shows that were adjudicated this year during the awards. But yeah, that is important to note. It's not on a kind of a year cycle like we do with the Oscars, in which we just do awards for all of 2025. This is on a very specific cycle. And then on Monday night, the 28th of July, at the Lone Tree Art Center, all of the winners were announced in a very big ceremony. And this year there were a couple of surprises, including the big winner of the night, Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater, and one major difference in the award show, because this year there were no actor or actress categories, just outstanding performer. And that was a big change that not everybody loved, as evidenced by a couple of boos that were heard when Colorado Theater Guild President Betty Hart actually announced this decision. But I would say those boos were vastly outnumbered by the eruption of applause that came when Betty actually ended her statement about why they had made this change to make those who don't identify as male or female or non-binary performers feel more included and represented in the award process without having to choose a binary category to submit to. So it ended up getting a big round of applause, but it was notable that not everybody in the room was on board with that.
Yeah, and I talked to a few people who were like, I'm not sure about it. But, and on our awards that we do for the OnStage Colorado, the Oscars, we decided right off the bat that we weren't going to do actor, actress. Not necessarily just for the, non-gendered people or differently gendered people or whatever, but just because, like, why do you distinguish them anyway? Because none of the other categories are distinguished that way for sound, design, whatever.
Yeah, that was the reason we initially did it. And I believe that was mentioned during the ceremony as well, that now performers will just be judged based on their performance similar to any other technical category, because acting it's technical. It requires a lot of skill. There is a craft to it. And so I think that this is a really good change. And we've also, like you mentioned, we've definitely landed on it's a good thing, since that's how we do our own awards here at OnStage Colorado.
Yeah, I would say the difference is they're only picking 2 from each category, whereas we usually have many more winners. So there is a chance that, 1 year it could be 2 guys or 2 women or 2, non-gender people or whatever, and then people would be complaining, I'm sure.
I mean, as did happen this year, there were a couple categories in which men were shut out altogether. There were 2 women who won the award, but we'll dig into those winners and all the interesting stats that came up a little bit later. I want to talk first about kind of the ceremony itself. What did you think of the Henrys this year, Alex?
Yeah, so last year they made a real effort to streamline it, to get it down from whatever it was, over 3 hours, I think.
That's right.
I think a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, that's a lot." And so last year I thought it was we both thought it was really good. This year seemed a little flatter. I'm not sure why exactly, but I don't know. But it was still a good ceremony. I think they came in at 2.5 hours, maybe, something like that.
So I timed it. The Henrys ended up starting at 7:10, and then they ended at 9:18. So the actual length of the show this year was 2 hours and 8 minutes, which is down even from last year. I think what you're noticing is that this year it did feel kind of arbitrarily kind of tight. There were a couple of speeches that kind of got in which the band ended up playing people off, and you were like, yeah. They're clearly right at the end. I feel like we don't lose anything if we just let people finish what they're saying. And I'm not sure. I think it was the performances of the five nominated shows for Best Musical, Come From Away, Music Man, Little Shop of Horrors, the Arvada Center's production of Waitress, and then what was the last one? I'm forgetting one.
I can't remember.
I've got my little handy-dandy program here, but I know I'm not going to be able to find it in a timely fashion.
That's all right.
Oh, and Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, also from the Arvada Center. Those were all
nice and short.
I thought they were all really good. Exactly. Particularly, I thought the standout was Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater's performance of Come From Away. That solo number that the actress did was just breathtaking.
She's
it's a real
fantastic. And
that performer ended up winning in their acting category later, as well as that show for Best Ensemble and Best Musical. So it was a clear favorite among the Henry judges as well. And that performance really allowed us in the room who hadn't been to Grand Lake to kind of understand why it won so much.
Right. Yeah, because I have to say, I didn't see any of those shows up at Grand Lake. I think we were both talking about this. Like, we need to get up to Grand Lake and see what those guys are up to because, haven't been up there.
100%. I agree. I really want to go up and see what those guys are doing. They always make an effort to do a regional premiere up there as a part of their season. This year, that's for their area. That's Frozen that they're doing, which, not exactly a super experimental title, but it's one that they can do. I imagine they're going to do really, really well. And so I thought it was also interesting. Michael Cuero, who is the longtime artistic director in the area for 30 years, he finally won for music direction this year. And he said in his speech that this was, quote, a nice cap off to my time there, which got me wondering,
I know.
Is he going to be announcing a retirement soon? He hasn't said anything publicly, but that line certainly made those in the room kind of curious and perk up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I think he said 29 years. That's a pretty long time for anybody to be anywhere. So
that's true.
So, but yeah, I wound up. I started out next near to you in the sort of close to the front, and I wound up retreating to the balcony so I could, take off my coat and spread out a bit. And it was a little hot in there. I also spent some time in the lobby. So Brian Landis-Wilkins was hanging out in there, and I was like,
nice.
"What are you doing out here, Brian?" He's like, "I'm so antsy, I can't sit in there." But there was a video monitor, so we were able to listen to it. And the cool thing about sitting in the lobby is that all the winners, every time when you win, you go out and you collect your trophy from somewhere out there in the lobby, off the lobby, whatever. So we got to see them all come out right after their win and all excited and stuff like that. So that was kind of fun hanging out in the lobby, and a lot of people sort of, as the show wore on, more and more people were hanging out there.
That does sound like a pretty nice experience. Maybe I have to try the lobby next year. But I'm not that I'm complaining. Folks who run the Henrys, I had a great seat.
Yeah.
I was seated on the end. I was next to one of the Henry coordinators, the Henry coordinator, Barb Thomas, who I know listens to this podcast. So I had a great time chatting with you, Barb. We had a lot of fun just talking about the show and the winners as it was going on. And I thought, one more thing before we dive into the winners, I thought that Betty Hart gave a really strong opening speech. She said, quote, "No matter how often people try to get us to be divided, remember we're stronger together and love wins." And I thought that was kind of the unifying message of the night, which was interesting and kind of a turn from past Henry Awards, was really kind of an intentional effort in the ceremony itself to create community and bring people together. And as Kenny Moten said later in the evening, some of the folks who won awards tonight, there's a chance they might not be here next year because of cuts to federal and local funding. And I think that when companies are scared right now. It's kind of hard to be petty and divided about this award show. And so it was easier to see this as a night for community building and talking with your friends and celebrating this theater community here in Colorado, rather than kind of really like wringing your hands over the fact that one or so-and-so didn't win, or this company didn't get enough, or X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. It was funny. Betty said she left her speech on her laptop, and so she just kind of ad-lib. But of course, Betty is very poised and well-spoken, and she really gave a nice little kickoff to the show.
Yeah, and she announced some interesting news for those in the room. The Guild is going to be collaborating with Struck Media to create statewide PSA kind of commercials to promote the arts across the state, which I thought was a really interesting move. I would be curious to see what those commercials look like and when they're going to start being filmed and rolling out, and where folks will be able to see them. Is this going to be on TV, on YouTube, on TikTok?
Where was my big question? Yeah, where are you going to put those? So probably not on, maybe you can get them on Rocky Mountain PBS or something like that, but they're probably better off getting them out on streaming, TikTok and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then I thought that one of the night's most emotional moments came about 3/4 into the evening when during the presentation of the Lifetime Achievement Award to Magic Moment Inc.'s artistic director, KQ. KQ. And it was presented by actor and director John Carroll Lynch, who flew into Denver to present that award to him. He was a student of him. He clearly knew him really well. He started the speech by taking off his suit jacket and putting on this Snoopy shirt because he said it would be more fitting because that was more appropriate for him. And I just thought it was a really touching tribute to him. It was clear that they knew each other, and he had a lot of really funny personal stories about them, like playing D&D together and just kind of hanging out, that exemplified his character and really set up his speech about what the theater community meant to him really well. I thought that was a really powerful moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to know more about KQ, John Moore did a really nice story about him in the Denver Gazette.
That's right.
If you can get past all of the pop-ups and ads and paywalls, and which I was trying to look at John's story about the Henrys this morning just to see what he had to say, and I couldn't penetrate the shit that was in the way. And it's like there's nothing else on that paper that interests me other than what John writes, and so I kind of let my subscription lapse. So it's just really hard to get back in there, which is unfortunate, but.
Yeah, they're really trying to get you to subscribe, and I am really intent on not subscribing.
But yeah, I noticed, the Denver Post didn't have anything about it. And Westward, I looked on Westward, but your story, so you did a story. It's not up yet, but you'll have a nice rundown of the night, right?
Likely by the time that folks are listening to this, my recap and analysis of all of the major categories will be up on the site. I guess that's not a new fact that coverage in the Henrys is dwindling over the years, but I think that it's definitely still worth kind of talking about who all the winners were and who got to collect those trophies.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it.
So the evening's biggest winner, as I've already mentioned, was definitely Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater in Grand Lake, which walked away with 7 wins. That comes from 5 from Come From Away and 2 from their production of The Music Man. And this allowed the company to beat out the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, the usual heavyweight, who... They don't cry for them, though. They still walked away with 6 awards, largely for their plays, though, including 2 for I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, 2 for The Hot Wing King, 1 for The Reservoir, and then a sole win for its production of Little Shop of Horrors, which had entered the evening as the most nominated production.
Yeah, I felt that wasn't quite right, because I think you and I both agree that was just that and Waitress were probably the two best musicals that we'd seen. Of course, let me caveat, we did not see any of the Rocky Mountain rep shows, but of the ones we saw, man, those were two great shows, and they were both shut out.
I like you mentioned, I really did like both of those shows, but I don't want to comment on the outcome of the winners, because as I was sitting next to Barb, she was telling me before the show started that she had gotten to see Rocky Mountain season, and it was one of the strongest she had seen in years. She had been raving about it to everybody, so she was like, I felt really good seeing these nominations, and as the night was going on, the wins that they were getting, and so I'm very much open to the idea that Rocky Mountain Rep produced a absolutely stellar production of Come From Away, which did end up winning Outstanding Production of a Musical over our favorites, Waitress and Little Shop of Horrors.
Yep, and Louisa Vitucci, who, as you were noting, had sung that solo from the show, was fantastic, and she did win Outstanding Performer in a Musical.
The other wins for Come From Away were musical, director, ensemble, choreography, and as you just mentioned, outstanding performer in a musical. Its production of Music Man won music direction for Michael Quiero, and featured performer in a musical Tier 1 for Mitchell Lewis, who had won for this company 2 years ago in its production of Jersey Boys.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, so Performance Now out of Lakewood did pretty well.
Yeah, I would say so. They got 4 awards, making this company the third most awarded company overall, and they were all connected to its production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which I did not get a chance to see, but from the photos that they were showing throughout the night, it looked like a very colorful, fun production of the musical.
Yeah, well, that's a great show, and done well. It's one of those golden oldies that I don't mind seeing again, for sure.
And Performance Now has been doing quite well at the Henry Awards in recent years. It's been winning a number of the categories that it's up against. It's clear that the Henry Awards have respect for the polished, kind of old-fashioned musicals that they program over there.
Seems that way, yeah. Yeah, I was talking to somebody who was like, how old are these Henry judges? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I bet it does skew older, and maybe that's, those are the types of shows that they lean towards, but I don't know.
Definitely. Another company that had a very good night was the Denver metro area's Firehouse Theater Company, who won 3 awards, making them the 4th most awarded company, including 2 for its production of Perfect Arrangement and 1 for Blues for an Alabama Sky. Firehouse really did have a strong season.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of good work, and I didn't see Alabama Sky, but I did see Perfect Arrangement, and that was a really, really great show, and Miranda Byers, who won, as well as Kelly Eulenhop, both great performances in that one. And then on the other end, so some of the ones, some of the big players that usually win, quite a bit. Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, Arvada Center really didn't win as many as they have in past years. Give 5 Productions and Miners Alley both won, so they all won 2 awards apiece. And then Arvada Center's Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder won for Outstanding Performer in a Musical with Shabazz Green, and Costume Design. So, so it demonstrated that it could still compete even after its highly nominated Waitress was shut out.
Yeah, because Waitress had 10 nominations, but walked away with not a single win, making it the evening's biggest loser. It was kind of sad to see, but I wonder, Waitress got quite a bit of its nominations in the acting categories against themselves. I couldn't just help wonder if maybe those performers canceled each other out a little bit. But I guess we will never know. Also joining in that kind of dubious distinction was Buntport Theater Company here in Denver, whose production of Eyes Up, Mouth Agape, which had 6 nominations going into the evening and was a favorite of both of ours. It's a kind of a satirical send-up of a very shitty situation. It ended up going home empty-handed.
I love that show so much, and I think Bun Portazoid just thrilled to get nominated. And they've won plenty in the past, but that one was could have been like kind of offensive to some people. I don't know, but it was really funny. So winners in my book.
Absolutely. And literally in our books, we did give them quite a few awards in our Oscars. It was interesting, though. The winners, this was kind of a departure from recent years where, particularly last year, where judges tried to spread the love across fields. But this year, that really wasn't the case. Only 20 productions received awards this year, which is down from 25 in 2024. And then similarly, just 15 companies won at least one awards, which is 5 fewer than the previous years. And the awards were largely consolidated among a smaller group, suggesting that judges were more comfortable kind of doubling down on their few favorite productions than kind of seeking to recognize a wider array of work. But yeah, and I think looking at kind of the geographic breakdown, it was interesting. 8 of the companies were still based in the Denver metro area. So that's Curious Theater Company, the DCPA, Firehouse, Arvada, Give 5, Performance Now, Platte Valley, and Miners Alley. 2 are from Fort Collins, Boz Blue, and Open Stage. 1 from Boulder, that's Boulder Ensemble Theater Company. 1 from Conifer, Stage Door. And then 2 from the mountains, a Rocky Mountain Rep and the Breckenridge Backstage Theater. And 1 from Colorado Springs with Springs Ensemble Theater taking home a single win for its production of The Clove River.
Yep. So, we talked about the acting categories being changed up. So, the one of the things that you mentioned earlier is that women kind of swept the night. So, 60% of the nominee pool identified as men. So, 11 of the 17 acting awards went to women, reversing, what some thought might be an imbalance in the opposite directions.
Yeah, women ended up, even though they were less nominated than their counterparts who identify as men in these acting categories, they ultimately ended up winning roughly 65% of the acting awards. And only 3 categories produce the kind of what might be considered traditional male-female split, and 3 categories shut out men entirely. So just kind of an interesting note. Kind of that is what it looks like when you just take gender out and you are just voting on the kind of the quality of the performances. Yeah.
So, you mentioned Buntport didn't win any. There are a couple other notable shutouts. So Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center, Colorado College, which did a number of nice, great shows this past year, as well as Colorado Shakespeare Festival, which is kind of like they never seem to do well at the Henrys. Even they do great productions over there, of course.
If the Henry judges do not award this year's production of The Tempest, I'm gonna have some they're gonna have to have some deep, serious reflection on if they just hate Shakespeare and are just unwilling to recognize that for excellence, because Shakespeare can be excellent, and the Colorado Shakespeare Festival frequently does do excellent work. And so it is notable that they were shut out this year entirely. So going to be watching you, Henrys.
Yeah. A couple others walked away empty-handed with Theater Works, Creed Repertory Theater, Town Hall Arts Center. And I should point out one more time that, when we talked about that they were spreading the love, they were doing this, that, or the other thing. They weren't really doing any of that purposefully. It's a ballot. They fill it out, and it goes into, a machine or a hand, however it's done. And it's just the numbers that add up. And that's who the winners are.
That's a good point. Yeah, the awards themselves, there was no effort in past years or this year to kind of favor a single company. They literally do just add it up. But that was the kind of tone in the speeches in between by presenters. The only thing I didn't necessarily love about the show, and I think maybe this is what made it feel a little bit drier than in years past, is they opened each category up with a really dry kind of, we are recognizing the fine theatrical art of playwriting and new work, which you all know is an impressive thing, which I was like, was this written by AI? If it wasn't, it just feels very flat and inhuman. And I think we could lose the introductions of the categories, which we all as theater artists and lovers know. and recognize the importance of, hence why we showed up to the show, and then give that time back to the winners so that they can speak a little bit more.
Yeah, I guess it's channeling like the Oscars a little bit, where they talk about the cinematographer's job is blah, blah, blah. It's teeing it up, but yeah, I don't think it's necessary.
I think that makes sense for something like the Academy Awards, which are being broadcast to a national or in some cases global audience. And so they are kind of having to explain that. But the Henry Awards are different in that they're largely for those people who are physically in the room there. The ceremony, it is technically, I guess it was being live streamed. As you mentioned, they had that video feed, but it's not going out to being played to a national audience to try to educate people about theater.
Right.
So I think that you could just give that time, cede that time back to the performers and other artists in the room.
Yep. All right.
So now let's quickly run through all of the winners from last night. So outstanding production of a musical went to Come From Away, which, as we've mentioned multiple times throughout this podcast, was produced by Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater, which was the evening's big winner.
Yep, and they also had Music Man nominated, and of course DCPA Theater Company with Little Shop of Horrors, Waitress with Arvada Center, as well as A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder were the other nominees. So for outstanding production of a play, this one went to a pretty dark play called Downstate that Curious Theater produced. It was about sort of recovering pedophiles, so not the most wholesome topic, but I didn't get to that, but our review that saw it said it was fantastic, and a lot of people were saying, "Holy crap, Downstate was just fantastic." So everybody seemed to be in agreement that was a good win for Curious there.
Yeah, it was interesting though. This was the only win for the production that walked away with Best Play. I guess that's not totally uncommon with these awards. If you'll remember, a couple of years ago, the Arvada Center's production of Into the Woods was not the most nominated production, but ultimately walked away with Best Musical. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the judges really do just show their love. They're like, this really was the best play, and wrote it high in that category, while maybe not giving it any other, not recognizing it for any other element. It's just one of the quirks of the tabulation process.
Yep. And I think the only win for Curious in a pretty strong season that they had. So another.
That is correct. It was Curious Theater's only win.
Yeah. So others in that category included The Reservoir and I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter at DCPA Theater Company, National Bohemians at Miners Alley, and Dial M for Murder at Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center.
Outstanding director of a play went to Rick Barber for the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company's production of Grounded. This was a one-woman show starring Ann Penner, which I did get to check out. It really was well done. It's a smaller piece. It's really intimate. It's about kind of PTSD and grappling with this. It's about a woman who does drone strikes and kind of grappling with the realities of that. Really, really smart play. Not something that you think that might be recognized at the Henry, particularly going up against some much bigger competition, flashier, like I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by the DCPA, The Hot Wing King at the DCPA, Downstate at Curious, and Dial M for Murder at the Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center. This is definitely the smallest of those shows, but the Henry judges clearly liked what Rick was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. In my conversation with Anne in the podcast earlier this year, we talked about, I was asking her specifically, what does the director do, for a solo show other than, the obvious stuff, move here, move there. And said she had some pretty interesting things about how it went down. Of course, they have this long collaboration where they've done this show before. So that really, I think that really showed in the direction of that show and how it came across so powerfully for people.
They've been friends for years. They're both professors at DU, so they clearly have a strong relationship. We'll be talking about Anne a little bit more in a later category.
So also in that category nominated was Laura Alcala Baker, I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, Timothy Douglas, The Hot Wing King, both at DCPA, Christy Montour Larson for Downstate at Curious, and Elise Santora for Dial M for Murder at Colorado Springs Fine Arts Center. Outstanding director of a musical, I was thinking Chris Coleman might get this one for Little Shop of Horrors at DCPA Theater, or Lynn Collins for Waitress at Arvada Center. But no, this one I went to Come From Away. Jeff Duke at Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater. He was competing against himself also for his direction of Kinky Boots. there as well. And then also the Music Man at Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater was Sally Scott was also nominated. So 3 nominations there for this director of a musical, just kind of showing how strong that musical theater program is up there in Grand Lake.
By the time they were announcing director of a musical, you kind of knew that it was going to be Come From Away, since Come From Away had won almost every single category that it was nominated for to that point. And I, like you, did think Chris Coleman was going to walk away with it, but Chris he's okay. He can dry his tears with his other Henry Awards that he has at home.
Yep. Although it might be a little uncomfortable drying your tears with that piece of glass.
That's true. Yeah. That's true. Next category was Outstanding Musical Direction, in which Michael Quiero, he bested himself to win for The Music Man over Come From Away, which he was also nominated for at Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater. Other nominees included Dom Scott in $1 Million Quartet. He also acted in that at Lone Tree Art Center. Angela Steiner for Little Shop of Horrors at the DCPA, and Alex Steinhorn for A Gentleman's Guide at the Arvada Center.
So the next category is one of these ones split into tiers. So tier 1 is like the bigger theaters. Tier 2 is the smaller one. So this is for Outstanding Performer in a Play. And this is that one of those categories we were talking about that's no longer actor actress. So there's 2 recipients in each tier. So the winners here were Ann Penner, who we were just talking about, and Grounded from Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, and Rosa Isabella Salvatierra, I'm Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter, who gave this was a DCPA theater company, and she gave a really nice speech. She was very funny. She's like, I'm from New Jersey. I had no idea. I'd never won any awards before, and she was fantastic in that show, as was Ann Penner in Grounded. So both definitely hats off to them, both well-deserved in that category.
And this is one of those aforementioned categories in which men were shut out entirely. These are two women who won this category, and I thought it was funny throughout the evening. Clearly, the presenters of the awards did not get the memo that there was going to be 2 recipients in each tier. Uh-huh. So when they were announcing it, they would be like, "It's a tie," and the Barb, who I was sitting next to, who coordinated the Henrys, would just like put her head in her hands and be like, "It's not a tie. There's 2 winners in each category."
Yeah. So because these categories are quite large, I think we can skip naming everybody. But what about tier 2?
So for tier 2, this was a legitimate tie. There was a tie for the first spot, meaning there were 3 recipients in this tier. So the 3 winners were Miranda Byers for Perfect Arrangement at Firehouse Theater Company, Wendy Isha for The Trip to Bountiful at Boz Blue Theater Company in Fort Collins, and Jonathan Underwood for Blues for an Alabama Sky at Firehouse Theater Company.
Yeah, he gave a really fun speech, and it was really great to see Wendy Ishii from Bob Blue win for Trip to Bountiful. Of course, she founded that theater back in the 90s, and doesn't get on stages all that often, so it was fun to see her up there.
She gave a really nice speech, too, that touched on her long relationship with Warren Sherrill, whom I had no idea that they went back that far. But if you want to hear a good conversation to learn more about Warren, you actually interviewed him last episode and get kind of deep into his past. Yeah.
And then Miranda Byers is one of those actresses who every time I see her, I'm like, oh, good, she's in it. And I really enjoy almost pretty much everything I've seen her in. And in Perfect Arrangement, she was really fantastic. And she was also, I don't know if costumes won for Firehouse, but man, she had all these fantastic dresses that they put her in for that. So, all right, so next one is Outstanding Performer in a Musical. Tier 1. So this was Shabazz Green, who we talked about winning in A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, and that he had the part where he plays like all these multiple characters, and he's a pretty wacky, super wacky part there. And then Louisa Vitucci, who we talked about, Come From Away at Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater, just fantastic, and she came out and did that little bit that just like convinced everybody. It's like, yeah, you definitely won this one.
Yeah. After she sang that song, I was like, "Yep, okay, I think you're gonna win. I think you deserve to win. I am now really sad I did not see this show."
Yep. What about
in tier 2? The two winners for this category were Clark Destiny Jones for his performance in Hedwig and the Angry Inch by Give 5 Productions, and then Genesee Pierce for her performance in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat as the narrator, produced by Performance Now Theater Company.
Yep, and Clark Destin Jones, we saw that performance, and he was just fantastic in it. Also gave a great speech, and that's they're doing a reprise of that at Ballyhoo, right?
That is correct. So if you want to catch it, you can check it out in the fall. It'll be there, I believe, in November.
Yeah, that sounds right. So yeah, not often that you get to go and see one of these Henry Award winners after they've been named. So cool. Well, next category is Outstanding Featured Performer in a Play. Again, 2 recipients in each tier. Isaiah Terrell Boyd won for The Hot Wing King at DCPA Theater Company, which was a great show that I was under awarded, I think. But and then the other was Leslie Sofia Perez, who was I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter at DCPA. I think she played the mom, right?
She actually was playing the best friend.
Oh, the best friend. Okay. Yeah.
She both really great supporting performances in 2 shows that I know that you and I both really enjoyed.
Yep.
As for tier 2, it went to Heather Osberg Johnson for The 39 Steps up in Fort Collins, produced by OpenStage Theater and Company, and Kelly Uhlenhop for Perfect Arrangement by Firehouse Theater.
Yep. So that one was mentioned, a really great performance there by Kelly Uhlenhop. And then it's interesting that all 4 of the Portians who are on stage, there's one, Samantha Schmitz, who's always off stage, but Brian, Hannah, Eric, and Aaron were all nominated in this category, which I thought was really cool. And that was I hope that's a show I hope they come back around and do in a couple more years. I'd like to see that again because it was just so much fun.
You know, that is the kind of show that you could always whip it out every anniversary of the Dave Matthews tour bus incident. You just do it every 5 years or so.
Yeah.
You can have that idea for free, Buntport.
Might be a little difficult to store all those bulky costumes of ships and buses and stuff. But yeah, what was next?
One quick comment. I didn't see the 39 Steps up in OpenStage, but Barb, who I was sitting next to, I asked her if she had checked it out, and she said it was one of the best things that OpenStage had done in years. It was a really funny production, and she really enjoyed. I won't say anymore. She just really enjoyed that production. Okay. I won't disparage any other shows.
Okay.
The next category is Outstanding Featured Performer in a Musical. This went to Will Branner for Little Shop of Horrors as the dentist and many other characters in the DCPA's show, and Mitchell Lewis for The Music Man by Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater.
Yep. Great field of actors in that category. In tier 2, Jennifer.
Oh, and I just want to quickly point out, and that's actually an instance of a category in which there were 2 men who won and no women.
Right.
So it goes both ways. It really does it's clear that the Henry judges really, or the coordinators just added up the numbers and let the top 2 winners win.
Yep. So in tier 2, Cabaret, Platte Valley Theater Arts production of Cabaret, Jennifer Burnett, who I believe played the older woman.
Fräulein Schneider.
Right. Great performance there. And then at Stage Door Theater up in Conifer, Jessica Sotwick won for Sweeney Todd, which I'm sorry, I didn't get up to see that one, but that was the second winner in that category. All right. Well, let's take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll get to categories like Outstanding Ensemble Performance, Top New Play, Choreography, Costumes, and more. OnStage Colorado is brought to you in part by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, whose production of Stephen Sondheim's Assassins runs August 8th through September 14th. Assassins is a provocative, Tony Award-winning musical that explores the minds and motives of history's most infamous figures who attempted to assassinate U.S. presidents, blending dark humor and compelling narratives to examine the American dream's darker side. Tickets at minersalley.com. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is a Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater in Grand Lake. Their 2025 summer season runs from June 6th all the way to September 5th and includes Disney's Frozen, Guys and Dolls, Footloose, and Nonsense. Find tickets at RockyMountainRep.com. OnStage Colorado is brought to you by Colorado Candlelight, featuring Anastasia through August 31st in Johnstown. This dazzling show transports its audience from the twilight of the Russian Empire to the euphoria of Paris in the 1920s as a brave young woman sets out to discover the mystery of her past. Tickets at coloradocandlelight.com. We're also supported by Theater Silco, featuring Jimmy Buffett's Escape to Margaritaville, August 8th through 31st in Silverthorne. This upbeat and energetic musical is the story of a part-time bartender, part-time singer, and full-time charmer named Tully, who thinks he's got life all figured out until a beautiful, career-minded tourist steals his heart and makes him question everything. Tickets at thesilco.org. Also supporting OnStage Colorado is the Colorado Shakespeare Festival, presenting The Tempest June 7th through August 10th and Richard II July 5th through August 10th. Shows take place in the Row Green Theater on the campus of the University of Colorado, Boulder. Tickets at cupresents.org. We're also supported by the Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, whose production of Cry It Out plays August 1st through the 3rd at the Denver Savoy and at the Boulder Dairy Center August 8th through 24th. Cry It Out is a smart and candid comedy about parenthood and class in America today and the hard choices all mothers make. Get tickets at betc.org. All right, we're back with the Outstanding Ensemble Performance at the Henry Awards. So this included a lot of great shows: Waitress at the Arvada Center, Downstate at Curious, the $1 Million Quartet cast at Lone Tree, the Music Man at Rocky Mountain Rep, but Come From Away came back again for this one to win for Rocky Mountain Repertory Theater.
It also won the next category for Outstanding Choreography. Jennifer Lupp won for Come From Away. It was at this point when these awards were announced that you started to get the sense that, oh, I think Come From Away is going to sweep all of these musical categories. In choreography, Jennifer ended up triumphing over Megan Bliss, who did The Music Man, also at Rocky Mountain Rep, Stephanie Hansen, who did Kinky Boots at Rocky Mountain Rep, Ricky Tripp, who did Little Shop at the DCPA, and Kelly Van Osprey, who did Fiddler on the Roof for Performance Now.
Yep. This next category is a fun one. You want to do this one?
Yeah, so this was Outstanding New Play or Musical. So this was any show that had its world premiere in the area. Some really, really interesting shows in this category, including National Bohemians by Luke Sorge over at Miners Alley Performing Arts Center, The Suffragettes' Murder by Sandy Rustin at the DCPA Theater Company. We had Sandy on the podcast earlier this year, so you want to hear more about that, you can listen to her. We had Luke on the podcast too, so you can listen to that conversation too. The Ballad of Paulo Aguilar by Boulder Ensemble Theater Company, Eyes Up Mount the Gate by Buntport and Emily K. Harris, but the winner was The Reservoir by Jake Brash, produced by the Denver Center. Jake is a local. It's a semi-autobiographical story. We saw this play when it was done at the New Play Summit a couple years ago. Saw its fully staged production. It's now getting its off-Broadway debut soon. Exciting. It's really an exciting time, and this just feels like the cherry on top. I saw that Jake shared a post about this on Instagram earlier today, just sharing how it just made his heart feel warm. So shout out to you, Jake. Really, it really was an exceptional script.
Yep. Go, Jake. Keep rolling with that one. Interested to see what he comes up with next. Real up-and-coming play right there, right from Colorado.
He couldn't be here tonight because he was working on another show that's at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. Right. So he is still working and iterating. Maybe we'll get to see whatever he's working on at Fringe here in Denver soon.
Mm-hmm. The next one is Outstanding Costume Designs. This is one of my favorite categories. I love looking at costumes. And this one went to Kevin Copenhaver for A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder at the Arvada Center. So that's a great show for costumes. He also was nominated for $1 Million Quartet at Lone Tree, along with Beth Goldenberg for The Suffragettes' Murder at DCPA Theater Company, also Samantha C. Jones for Little Shop of Horrors at DCPA Theater Company, and Nicole Watts for Waitress at the Arvada Center.
In Tier 2, Susan Ransendorf Terry won for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat by Performance Now. She beat herself because she was also nominated for Pirates of Penzance by Performance Now Theater Company, as well as Emily K. Harris and Buntport Theater for Eyes Up, Mouth Agape, Nicole Harrison for Irving Berlin's White Christmas, Rachel Herring Luna for Perfect Arrangement by Firehouse Theater Company, and Emily Valley for Reefer Madness by Open Stage Theater and Company. So, and this was a fun, I really liked this year how they were up on the screen. They showed the costumes and pieces of the set and all of these different, and like the performers in action rather than just headshots. It really was fun for some of these shows that I didn't get a chance to see, to be able to kind of get a sense of what was nominated.
Right. Yeah, I think, a lot of times the costumes that people really notice are the big flamboyant ones. And so that's certainly the case with Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, where costume is referenced in the title itself. But I have to extra shout out to Rachel Herring Luna for Perfect Arrangement, because those period costumes that they did from I guess it was the 50s or 60s. It was during the Red Scare, so that would have been like the 50s. Really, really great job on those. Just more subtle, but man, they were just looked like they were spot on. And that's not easy to do. Sometimes just finding those pieces is really hard. So another great technical category, lighting design. Who came out on top here?
Well, I would say Vance McKenzie came out on top here. He won both in Tier 1 and in Tier 2. Yep. In Tier 2, there was a tie, so there were two winners. But he won for his lighting work in Tier 1 for National Bohemians by Miners Alley Performing Arts Center. It was a great play. It was a strong technical work. He had to create a storm on stage that was realistically moving in, and a lot of that was done by the lighting and sound effects, which we will get to in a category soon. But Vance got that award there. In Tier 1, he beat John Dunkel for $1 Million Quartet at Lone Tree, Charles R. McLeod for Little Shop at DCPA, Shannon McKinney for A Gentleman's Guide, and Jeanette Okasuki-Yu for The Reservoir at the DCPA.
And then in
Tier... Oh, yeah, go ahead. Take it away for Tier 2.
Sure. Tier 2 for this category in lighting design went to Brett Maughan at Hedwig and the Angry Inch from Give 5. And as you referenced, Vance McKenzie for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. And I think that's the first Tier 1, Tier 2 winner. So that was really exciting. He kind of just stayed up there for the two awards.
Yeah, he was very funny. He was like, I don't know why I'm here, but he was very... He did excellent work. I know why he's there. It was, at least for Natty Bose, that was really strong work. And he's very funny. He gave a lot of thanks to the other technical artists on board, which I think made for a very endearing speech.
Yeah, I think that, a lot of these technical, these folks work with each other. They probably trade secrets and equipment and all kinds of stuff. So they're sort of in a class of their own. They're not all that competitive, I think, but of course everybody loves an award, right? Outstanding scenic design went to Toni Sisek for the Hot Wing King at the Denver Center. So this was like, they had to recreate sort of like a whole sort of an industrial kitchen, not on the scale of Clyde's earlier in the year, but that was, I guess there was two kitchen sets at the Denver Center this year. And this one it also had other playing areas. So it was a very functional set that worked really well in the round there at the Killstrom Theater.
Yeah. We talked about the effectiveness of the set in our review of that production. Toni won against Brian Malgrave, who did Waitress at the Arvada Center, Alan E. Marcaro for Little Shop, Cody Tellis Rutledge for Come From Away at Rocky Mountain Rep, and Reed Thompson for The Suffragettes Murder at the DCPA. I was a little surprised. I actually did think that Reed would win for The Suffragettes Murder.
That was a beautiful set.
I didn't necessarily care for that production, but there was no denying that the set design was jaw-dropping.
Right.
And then in Tier 2, Andrew Bates won for Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat by Performance Now. Other nominees included Spencer Alton, who did Cabaret at Breckenridge Backstage Theater, Megan Davis Megan Davis, Jeff Jinsmer, and Troy Lakey for Perfect Arrangement by Firehouse, Roger Hanna for Waiting for Godot by Boz Blue Theater Company, Jez Gismer and Adrian Martin Fullwood for Blues for an Alabama Sky at Firehouse, and Jason Laundrie, Chloe Flores, Robert Urita, Paul Labar, and Justin Gross for The Play That Goes Wrong by Steel City Theater Company. And I think that's all the names. I cannot say any more in that category.
All right. Outstanding sound design. This was well-deserved. I was really happy to see John Hauser get this for National Bohemians at Miners Alley. He does a lot of great work there. And I think I think he's won before. I think actually he won last year in this category.
He did.
But still, National Bohemians
right.
was a real standout because you don't always recognize sound design as much as you do like some of the other categories. And of course, you were talking about, the lighting and the sound went hand in hand in that one to recreate this storm, and not just a storm in one part of the show. It was basically the entire show, and it was building and building. So great job by the whole tech team there at Miners Alley.
Yeah, this was interesting because the other nominees included Max Silverman, who actually had 3 nominations in this category. For Baskerville, Creed, Gents Guide at Arvada Center, and Waitress at the Arvada Center, but didn't end up winning in this category. Other nominees were also Elizabeth Widener for Little Shop, and Noel Nichols, Daniel Hart, Bailey Treeweiler, and Uptown Works for I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter at the DCPA.
And then in Tier 2, they had a tie between Brendan O'Hara for Every Christmas Story Ever Told at the Backstage Theater in Breckenridge, and Kitty Robbins for On Clover Road at Springs Ensemble Theater Company.
That's right.
And that's it. There was just the one Lifetime Achievement Award. We talked about KQ, the artistic director at Magic Moments, Inc., and that was the show.
Yeah, so be sure to check back with OnStage Colorado in January when we are going to present our 3rd annual OnStage Colorado Awards for Theatrical Excellence, aka the Oscars, which are kind of our take on the award show, in which we seek to honor excellence across the state in a variety of categories, similar to this, but on kind of a year cycle rather than they do during a certain period.
Yep, and Toni and I have been hard at work kind of trying to tally up the first part of the year.
That's right. Yeah, I've already dug in. I would say based off my notes so far, I won't name any specifics, but overall, it's been a stronger year in my opinion for plays than musicals across the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, all right. Well, next week on our regular podcast, we'll be back with, we have an interview with Dixie Longate, who is wrapping up her, I think, 14th season doing her Dixie Longate's Tupperware Party, and also Don't Wear a Tube Top When You're Riding a Mechanical Bull or something like that. So she's a lot of fun. She came on in character. So that'll be on next week. And then we'll go through all of our Colorado headliners and probably come up with some other topic to talk about.
Absolutely. So in the meantime, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. If you want more theater, you can head on over to our website, onstagecolorado.com, and we have a news blast that comes out pretty much every Thursday that you can subscribe to for more listings on upcoming shows. We also send out our reviews there. And then there's a big calendar on the website in which, if you want to check out shows around the state, that is the ultimate tool to do so.
It certainly is. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening. Happy Henrys. I'm Alex Miller.
And I'm Toni Tresca. Thank you for Henrying, and we will see you at the show.